So today in today's KT session, I'm going to talk about end-to-end testing. Basically, especially actually this is for QA people, but I think developing guys and girls also can get an idea about end-to-end testing. So it would be better if you can get a brief idea when you are doing the developing as well. So let's see what is end-to-end testing. So end-to-end testing is a software testing method that validates entire software from starting to the end, along with its integration with external interfaces. So as you can see in this picture, uh, there's a system, software system. It is interconnected with subsystems, and it is connected with network and firewalls and also external interfaces. But when we are doing the system testing, actually we are testing the software system only. We consider only this phrase. But in end-to-end testing, we are considering the entire software system. So that is the main difference between the system testing and end-to-end testing. Actually, the purpose of that end-to-end testing is to test the whole software for dependencies, data integrity, and communication with other systems, interfaces, and databases to exercise complete production like a scenario. And along with the software system, it is also validate batch processes from other upstream, downstream systems. So that is why we call it as end-to-end testing. So it is also called as chain testing. Furthermore, if we can explain it like this, in software testing, we can break that software testing process into different levels. We can call them as phases. So, for example, we have unit testing, integration testing, system testing, acceptance testing, like that. We have several phases in software testing. So, for example, in unit testing, we are doing like we are test individual units like classes, methods in isolation. Then in integration testing, it tests interaction between the units and the components to ensure that the unit interfaces behave as expected. And then we are doing the testing in system. It's test the entire system, usually mocking the external services such as databases and third-party services. Then we are doing the acceptance testing. Then we can compose these levels into representation called as a V model. I think you have heard about that one. So in a V model, actually, we are doing a high level of quality assurance standards testing interfaces, but that may not be sufficient for the complete testing process. In that case, we can go for an E2E testing. So it will approach the exercise and entire workflow. It will test the entire workflow through an application or set of applications using a production or near production environment. So in E2E testing, we will never miss things like in system testing, we are only considering like system, software system, but in E2E testing, actually, we are considering the subsystems and we test the entire workflow. So that is what we call actually E2E testing and the purpose. Now, why we are doing end-to-end testing? So as I previously explained, we are doing end-to-end testing actually to verify the complete system flow and to increase the confidence by detecting issues and increase the test coverage of a subsystem. So doing end-to-end testing will help to increase the test coverage. because we are doing testing with the subsystems as well. So we will never miss the things that we cannot catch. So, and also nowadays in modern software systems, they are a little bit complex and they are interconnected with multiple subsystems. So uh, they can be differ from the current system. So the whole system, those complex whole systems can be collapsed by failure in subsystems. So if there is any failure in those subsystems, we can catch them and we can mitigate the risks uh, for the major testing environment or for the major product. We can reduce the defect coverage and we can increase the test coverage from doing the end-to-end testing. So how we are going to do end-to-end testing? There's a process. Actually, this is more similar to the usual process. But the special thing is E2E testing is like we have to cover all the cases. We have to cover the whole system testings in this. The first one is analyze the requirements. So we have to gather the requirements as usually, and we have to have a clear idea about how to work with those interconnected subsystems, and we have to have a clear picture about those system. So then we have to set up the test environment and alignment with the all requirements. We have to set the test environment and we have to analyze the softwares and hardware requirements. We have to analyze what kind of softwares and what kind of hardwares that we need to do, we need to have in order to do the testing. And we have to check, we have to make a checklist or the list down how these systems needs to be respond. When we give an input, how it's going to be respond. We have to have a plan. And also we have to list down testing methods which we need to test those responses. We have list down the responses that we need to get, and then we have to list down the testing methods, like what kind of tools that we need to use, what kind of environment that we have to set up, languages what we need to follow, what are the test strategies. Likewise, we have to list down all the methods. And then we can create the test cases and then run and see the output, test the output. That is the main process that we are doing in E2E testing. So this is a simple overview about the process. As I said, in the first place, we have to gather the requirements, and then we are doing the designing. And after the component testing, designing, development, we have to do the E2E testing. Okay. Now, how we are going to create? Now, in order to do the testing, we have to create scenarios of the test cases. So there are three main activities that we have to follow in order to create test cases or test scenarios. So these are the three activities, like building the functions. First, we have to build the functions, and then we have to build the conditions, and then we are going to create the test cases or test scenarios. So let's see how it's going to be happen. First one is building user functions. So when we are creating, when we are doing the building the user functions, that means we have to identify the functionalities. So there are four major things that we have to follow, like list the features of the software and it is interconnected subsystems. We can list down all the features of the software and we can identify the interconnected subsystems. And for those each function, we have to track and record all the actions performed. So we have to list the input data, what are the actions and the expected output data for the features. And also then we have to identify the relationship between those functions. and determine whether these functions are independent, or whether we can reuse them for the testing. So likewise, first step is to build the user functions. And the second step is building the conditions. So now we have created, or we have built the functions now. Then we have to build the conditions based on those functions. So in that case, we have to decide a set of conditions for every user function, including the timing, data condition. Likewise, we can consider those conditions. I can say an example, let's say like this, in building user functions. For example, we can consider a scenario like we are logging to a bank account and transfer some money to another account from some other bank. So there are some main functionalities that we can identify. For likewise, log into the banking system and check for the balance amount in the account, and then we can transfer some amount from our account to some other bank account, and then we can check our latest bank balance, and then log out from the application. Likewise, we identify some functionalities. And in the second step, we build conditions for those functions. So, for example, we can say like for the login page, we can say like the conditions we can check invalid username and password. We can check with valid username and password, and the password strength, checking the error messages. Likewise, we can have conditions for the created functions, identified functions. And then the third step is creating or building the test cases. So actually, in that case, we mainly consider these 2 points. So we can have multiple test cases. We can create multiple test cases to test every functionality of the functions that we have identified. And also we can assign at least single separate test cases to every condition. Let's say the building, if we are going to build a scenario like this, for the same example that I have given previously, we can say like scenarios, log into the system and then check the balance of the amount and the transfer the bank balance amount. Likewise, we can identify the scenarios, and according to them, we can make test cases. So that is the process of making test cases in end-to-end testing. Okay, and now what are the challenges when we are doing E2E testing? So there are 2 main challenges when we are doing the E2E testing. First one is creating workflow. So in building a workflow, in the E2E testing, there must be executed, the test cases of E2E testing must be executed sequentially. But in a distributed workflow, it is difficult to manage a workflow where thousands of test cases can be run. So it made difficult to have a sequential order. So, but in E2E testing, the testing must be done in sequential method. Sorry. So it is a big challenge when we are doing E2E testing. And the second one is accessing the test environment. So in custom applications, those can be tested easily in a virtual dev environment. So the real challenge arrives when we have to test it in an offline application, in a client or in a product environment. So there is a limited availability of test environment that we have to install a local agents and log into that virtual machine. And also, After all of this, we will need to figure out a way to keep this machine during the execution time of execution, prevent the unfrozen situations like system update. uh, we have to prevent those situations, so it will be interrupt the execution of test cases. So that is also a big challenge when we are doing the E2E testing. So at the beginning I told you that you may think like the system testing and E2E testing are similar, or they have the same scenario. Like in system testing, we are doing the entire testing of the system, and E2E testing also we are doing that. But there's a difference. So that is why I've listed here. So in actually system testing, it validates just the software system as per the requirement specification. But in E2E testing, it is validate the software system and as well as interconnected subsystems. But in system testing, we are not doing that. So the specialty of that E2E testing is like we are in doing the testing with the interconnected subsystems as well. And also in system testing, it checks the system functionalities and the features. But in E2A testing, it checks the complete end-to-end process flow. So we are checking the whole process. We never miss anything. We are trying to figure all the things from the start to the end. So that is the difference between that. And in system testing, uh, we consider when we are testing the functional and non-functional testing. There are two types of testing. So those two types of considering in system testing. But in E2A testing, all the interfaces, backend systems, and everything is going to be tested. And in system testing, it is usually executed after the integration testing. After the integration, we are doing the system testing. But E2E testing is doing after the system testing is completed. That's the difference. And also the final thing, it's system testing. Actually, we can do both in manual and automation. In both sides, we can perform for the system testing, but E2 testing also we can do in automation. But uh, there are some scenarios that we cannot do automation. So it involves checking external interfaces, which can be complex to automate. So in that case, such scenarios, we are preferring manual testing in E2A testing. So this is what I want to tell you today, that I hope that everyone did not, sometimes you are confused with some points. So, but I hope that everyone get a brief idea about E2A testing. So in software engineering and in end-to-end testing is a process that verifying software system along with the subsystem. And the biggest challenge in this testing to have enough knowledge of the whole system and as well as the interconnected subsystems. So I hope everyone get simple or a simple overall idea about E2E testing. And thank you for your time to participate for this KT session. Thank you.